coming, and sorry about the slight delay. My name is Rob Page. Myself and Jim Hinks run Comma Press, and it's a great honour to be able to introduce to you a fantastic writer who we've been very, very, very lucky to translate and launch in English for the first time, Hassan Blasim. For anybody of my generation, of our generation in Britain, there's very few people of our generation whose consciousness hasn't been completely saturated by images, news coverage, media footage of the Iraq War. For all of us, it's the great shame and the great outrage of our generation, much as the Vietnam War was for the people of the 60s generation in the West. And like that war, there is no shortage of films and reportage and coverage and books about the experience, but it's amazing how much of that is from a Western point of view, and amazing how much of it is about America or the West talking about itself on its big sort of road show into another country. It's shocking how little there is published and available in English from an Arabic point of view on the subject of the Iraq War. And when I first read the opening story by Hassan, which you'll be reading tonight, when we put together a previous anthology on the Middle East, when I first read this story, it was like all the media coverage I'd ever seen was suddenly sort of wiped clean. I was blown away by this story, and it felt like I was reading about it. I was hearing the report from the front line, from Baghdad, for the very, very first time, and nothing really compares to it. So it's a great sort of source of pride for me and Jim to be able to help this voice and to give a platform to Hassan's work. His subject matter is inevitably very, very dark and often disturbing, but he is able to navigate himself and us through these stories with the help of a great sense of humour. And it was wonderful to finally meet Hassan a few months ago when he came over for a launch in Liverpool, and to sort of get to know him as a character, because he is the opposite of a sort of a depressed figure or an angry figure. It's wonderful to get to know him. His writing, as he himself, is full of comedy and absurdity and humour. So it's a great honour to be able to introduce him. Tonight he's going to read two stories. He's going to read them in Arabic, and we have an English translation here which will be scrolled simultaneously. If anybody wants to read, if anybody is short-sighted or is a slow reader and would prefer to read from a printed text, we have printed text. So if you would prefer that, we have them. Jim can hand them out to you now. If you
put your hand up,
yeah,
anyone who wants
one, if you like that. And have you got one of both? Yeah, and another one, yes. The first story is the opening of the collection. That's the second one. And The Madman of Freedom Square, which is the first story we saw of Hassan's. That's the second one. And two more. Second one. That's the second. Hassan is a filmmaker and a poet and an editor, as well as a short story writer. As a filmmaker, he worked in exile had to move to North Iraq, Kurdish Iraq, and make films under a pseudonym whilst living under the Saddam Hussein regime.